said I went there. I did, but anyhow I didn't accept in the first place. Later I think to you.
Good. So yesterday we were talking about generic objects, right? So we created an object called education, and we've seen how we can put it, how we can associate two objects in a composite association, and then how we can assign it, how we maintain the data was what we have seen yesterday. So today what we'll do is how we can make this available for an employee in the front end. But, sorry? Someone might have done it. What do you have seen? So I'll show you where it could be coming from. When you put date effectiveness, right? So obviously system will check for the value of those pick lists on those dates. Okay? So that's why you could not.
But in the handbook that we have given, there also mentioned date effectiveness.
For a child object.
Some parent object.
Not, this is a child object.
Child object, yeah. For child object, also mentioned time. Date 1/1990. I have gone to the handbook and checked it twice.
Which handbook are we checking?
The record was that.
So where did you see my exercise?
The handbook has been contracted.
Okay, so we just sorry? Okay. So configure object definitions. Right, so this education, so this degree is a child object for your education. So I mapped or associated this object one-to-many to the education object. So in this particular thing, what we have is a string which says a serial number. Then you have got class, and then you've got college name, grade, and comments. It says from parent. From parent. Okay, so when I go to education, so the education takes the effective dating, and from education it goes to the child object. It's basic, and the child object degree takes the effective dating from the parent object. Okay, that's what composite association is all about. So that's for integrations. When you want to integrate it with third party and modify it online, you use APIs. So then we go to manage data. Guys, can you hear me online?
Yeah, yes, Praveen.
So
Praveen, in that
Praveen, a quick suggestion, Praveen. Hello, Praveen.
Sorry? Yes?
For the people online who say that they can't hear, right, probably ask them to disconnect their headset and plug in again. So that works sometimes.
Okay, I'm sending in.
Yeah, this is an everyday issue, right? So I just want to. While connecting, it will ask, do you want to use the new hardware? Say yes, so that will.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you guys ask me, like, we can't hear, that's another problem. Same with me as well. So, education, right? So, education, custom education. So, this is the object created. So, if you look at, yes?
Yeah, well, just sorry to interrupt you. Like, after the associations, there is something like search fields and search fields and some other.
Yes, we'll go there. Okay,
we'll go there. Okay, that's fine. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I'm just showing the basic functionality and then we'll go to the complex part. So we have the user, let's say Marcus. You got a legal entity. You got your history. See, this is one-to-many, that's why it starts repeating. This is a one-to-many association of the child object. Okay, so this is how you see it. You don't see the effective dating here now, which is good. So I'll cancel. So what I'll do now is I'll show, as of now we have seen it from the backend perspective. We're doing it from managed data perspective. But I want to have this particular section available as a portlet in the employee level, as a view in the employee level. How do I do that? So for that, what you have to do is, you have to go to, first you need to define your layout, how it should look like. So for that, go to manage configuration UI, go to manage configuration UI, So we're creating a new object. So this is a screen or the layout of the screen where you're going to put this particular thing. Let's say this is education. The object is custom education. You see here? So this is our standard. Okay, so for example, if we would like to modify this one, you can put a label override. For example, I can put it as start date. So I can change the label. You see, it was effective start date, and I'm not changing in the object. If you look at it, the object remains same. But from a UI perspective, it would remain same. Let's say I want to change the label of legal entity from there to here. Instead, I would put it as company. This will override in the front end. Okay, and you can also put there whatever you want here, and you can also add a field. You can also add a group. What is this? That's not coming. So you can edit the properties, you can see different things here. Okay, so there are control options. You can say add new record, yes. You can say display options, is a display type form or chart or format string, title style. You can choose all the different properties of your screen. Here, let's say for example, I want to change the properties. This one is education background. I don't want to put that as it shows education background. So this is more of cosmetic changes. Okay, I save it. So we created an object for education. It's a screen UI actually. It's a UI screen. So we're creating a UI for our custom object. So when we go there, can you see it at employee level already? No, you don't. You don't see it on right now. What we have to do is we have to go and say configure employee files. So first thing is you need to define a UI screen where you can find the layout, okay, customize the layout, and then you have to come here to our employee files layout and add a new view. Okay, so add a new view. Here you can insert a portlet. In the portlet, you have to remember you have to add live profile MDF information. So this is an MDF object that we are bringing here, right? So you have to create and add. So what is this called? Let's say it's called education background. Let's say I want to save it. So this is the education screen ID, the portlet that we just created, the UI screen. Remember, we just created a UI screen. I named it education, so you need to assign it here. Then save it. Remember, you should save twice always, otherwise it won't allow you. You should save the dashboard. Okay, so the education background is available now. Sure. So what you have to do is you have to go and add new view. So you should insert portlet. Here in the insert portlet, always remember you have to come to the screen where you have to choose live profile MDF information. So create and add live profile MDF information. Here you have to map your screen ID that you've created previously, the UI, to your object or the view that you are trying to create, and then assign it. Okay. And now an important tip, a very important tip. So let's say I created an object, I created a view. Okay, I try to go and create a view. I don't see the custom object. Why? The reason for that is, remember, you can assign an MDF object at an employee view level only if the topmost, the external code was a user. You remember, I created the external code with a user. In the education object, the first field is a user. Unless your first field is a user, you cannot create these views. That employee user is mapped to employee view. Now when I go to this view at an employee level, you don't see user anymore. You start from company, you start from the start date, and then you see other fields. You don't see the user field anymore. Okay, so if at all you want to assign a view at a user level, remember the external code of the parent field or the parent object should always be a user. Otherwise it won't work. If it's not used at an employee level, you're fine to choose whatever you want to use. The external code field should always be a user. Now, can I go and see this view at a user level? Yes? How many people would say yes? How many people would say no? Yes or no? Can I see this at an employee level? Hope so.
What about permissions for this?
Exactly, Suresh. You nailed it. So you need to define permissions, right? So I created a new view, but did I say that I can view it? I did not anywhere. So I should go and modify the permission. Special view. Too many, huh? So someone can help me in deleting a lot of things here. So this is system administrator. In the employee views, you've got education background now. You see that? This one. So I need to give the permission. It will be available in employee views, remember. Give the authorization to view it. Now I go and saying education background. You see the data is already coming. That's because of the data we created in the backend. Okay, so I created the data from managed data as well. That's why you see it for Carla Grant. Let's say I go for someone else. You don't see it here. It's because I did not create anything in the backend for Alexander Thompson. So if I create it here, you can also see that in the question. Sorry? All right, so yep. So this is how it comes up at the user level. You understand, everyone? what we're doing?
But in the backend, did we give as a Carla?
So yes, I mean, we gave for Carla and you see the data for Carla, right?
Okay.
You see it at Carla because I did not create it, but you still see the data available for Carla because I maintained it in the backend. You see it here already. Right. So, yes.
As now that execution background is one of our partlet, and we have the foundation, generic object created, right? So
Right.
if we want to do a mass load, do I get a CSV template for this particular partlet if I need it?
Of course, you'll get it.
Okay.
So how do we import data into MDF objects? Import and export data, just like how we did for our legal entities and all. So you'll get a template for your object. Education. Custom education. So simply put no, and then download. Okay. So here is your data. CSV file.
Employee legal entity effective.
But why this is only showing few? Because I did not put, you include dependencies. So I download now. It shows me a package with other objects which are supposed to be loaded.
Right, that degree, merit and all, right?
Yeah. Right. Okay, so this is a generic process that we follow for other objects as well, so it's standard. Now, what we do is we'll make it a little complex. Let's say we have an employee and we're trying to maintain something. We have seen the objects already that we have got a company coming from. So why should I maintain a company when an employee is already associated with the company? Because it's already working for a company, right? Why is it coming separately? Why should I maintain it separately? So what I want is when I go and maintain, I want to see the employee's company by default, let's say. Okay? What will I do now? Yes, it should go with the rule. So, okay, so we'll start writing rules and we'll kind of discuss MDF and rules together. You cannot add new objects to the higher screen. That's by default in SUCCESSFACTORS. We cannot. There is no option to add a new screen. That was my question when I attended the training also. So, because it's very common in SAP, right? Because you have custom info types you put during a hiring screen. But here there is no option. You can follow an import or do something later. But at hiring, no, it's not possible. But anyway, forget about education. Education was just an example. Usually education is available in your talent process. Okay, you have a separate screen. Any other thing? Yes. Okay, we'll create, yeah, it's standard. Hiring screen is standard. We cannot change it. What should be my base object? Custom education.
Hi, morning here. The connection. After assigning the employee, we are creating a rules now.
Yes. Let's say we're trying to create a rule, a simple rule to start with. What it is set legal entity is always equal to employee job information dot company. So what I'm saying is legal entity is equal to employee's job information, employee. I'm going to the object, employee. If you look at it, this employee is an object, right? Employee. In employee, go to job information portlet. In job information, assign company. I save it. Very simple, basic thing. Okay. So what I'll do is I need to assign this particular rule. Employee.jobinformation.company. So where is company stored in employee data in the job information portlet? So I have to go to job information and mark that field. Now, what we have to do is we have to configure business rules. So there are two things. Sorry, why did I come to configure business rules? I already did that, right? Configure business process. Do you have something like that? So we go to our object definition again. Let's say I go to our object called education. Right, so I'm going to custom education. So there are rules. If you look at it, these are the fields. So we have seen the association section, and there is an option for searchable fields. So searchable fields are simple. So you have an object and your fields. So when you go and search, usually by default you search by name called education. But if you want to search with, let's say, user, you put external code. Here. So that means you can search with external code as well as standard name of the object. That's what searchable field is about. Not alias, I mean it's like searching, okay? Searching with which fields of the object that you can search. These are
is that search? Is it external search? Actually, where do we do the search?
Search when you go to, let's say, manage data. Okay? And you have this object. You select the object called custom education. There are 100,000 of employee records with custom education details object filled. And you want to search Carla Grant. How do you search? That's where this particular searchable fields are used. Security we'll discuss. Rules. We're coming here now. So there are initialize rules. There are validate rules, save rules, post-save rules, delete rules. There are a lot of different types of rules. Right now, where is my rule can be fitted? Save rule. So that rule should be propagated when I save it. Or when I select the employee, I want to propagate the company. Which one is the right thing? Usually it's the employee level. So if it's at an employee level, that means this particular field is triggering this field. Right? User field is triggering the company field. Let's say in that case, I have to go inside the rule. So inside the field, sorry, not the rule. I'm so sorry. So there is foo. Sorry. Test underscore education. Done. I save it. So first thing I'm doing it at a field level. I'm doing it at a field level. So I'll go back, going back to manage data. Let's say I create a custom education. So let's say I'm using Carla Grant. there is already a record existing for Carla, right? So let's say Peter Martin Chebra. Yes, here. So our rule is triggering the next field. That's at a field level. I defined the rule at a field level, and I said it's always true. Irrespective of other conditions, it puts a condition saying always true. Okay, whenever I select an employee, the legal entity should be employee's legal entity. Why should it be different? It should not be. Okay, this is good. Now, let's say I change it. I'll bring it back to the object level. How is it different? Let's see that. Right, so I put it here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it. And I also forgot to show you the searchable option. I'll show you that. What I'm doing here is I'll put it in the save rules. That means whenever I save this particular object, the rule will be triggered.
Can we do it with initialize?
We'll do all the rules here. We'll work on the different types of rules. Let's say I'm showing the manage data. Let's say I create custom education. Let's say I put Carla. No, Carla is already there. Let's say I put Carlos today. Then let's say I save it. When this is saved, it triggers the value once I save it. Initialize I cannot. The reason for that is because initialize is something that comes as a default value. No. Initialize is like, let's say, by default I have to choose everyone to ACE Germany. Okay, so this one might not be the right scenario, but we'll try. The rule has to change actually. Where the rule where written is employee.company. Without selecting a employee, it doesn't work out that way. So initialize is by default, it shows this particular company. Let's say I go back now. So I'm going back to the first place. What I'll do is I'll go back to our business rules.
But actually, Praveen, like in a real-time scenario, if we create a portlet like this and add it to the employee and leave it blank, and if we have that initialize, when the employee really, when he opens his data, at that time, this is one of the portlet, right? By the time his employee ID, user ID is already populated, can it be like, can this rule can be triggered with initialize and bring his company?
Maybe at an employee level, yes, I think this should be fine. Yeah, I think we can do that. Yeah. I'm thinking more from a backend perspective. From a user perspective, yes, it should be. Let's try. This is custom education. Let's say what we're going to do.
The field you are talking about is this advanced, right? So when you click on advanced.
Advanced, sorry, what is that?
Searchable field. The purpose of searchable field is in that. Is that associated with advanced?
I'll show you. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is remove this here and put it in initialize. Okay. So I go to employee. Okay, so when I go to education background, so by default at an employee level, so it should initialize that's not. So the initialize is not so correct. The scenario is actually wrong. As I said, so I'll show you.
Maybe at least we should have one.
So this can work this way. Okay, so I'm setting this value by default now. Okay, so let's say I go to let's see if this works, because initialize rule should initialize this value. You see? That's a problem with initialize. I mean, it's a condition. When I say employee dot, this one is usually used at a conditions level. But this one, if I put a value, by default, it will initialize this with value. Right. So anyone it takes, right? So it should not be this way. But that's fine. This is an example. This is not a scenario. You can do this in different places, right? So let's say, for example, you're trying to set up something by default. You want to have a value. You can use initialize rules to do that. And let's say, sorry, that's for all. There's no condition, it's for all. Now what I'll do is, this is already stored. Anyway, so what I'll do is, I'll now show you validation. We need to see how we can. First thing first. So what I can do is custom education. The custom education portlet. What I'm doing here is I'm going to validate this rule. So validate the value that I just created. This can be anything. You can simply take anything. So this one is if legal entity is not equal to employee dot company. That means if the employee's company and legal entity that we assigned are not matching, then throw an error message, write a message saying, okay, if you want, I can create a custom message as well. If you want me to do that, I can quickly do that. So quickly, let me create manage data, message definition, sorry, here. Message definition, say this is a incorrect legal entity for employee. Okay, so I save it. When I go to our rule, what I can do is I can assign this incorrect legal entity for employee. The severity should be error. Where do you associate this message to? The legal entity. Save it. Okay. Do this. Come back. I've got the validation rule. Test underscore education underscore validate. I save it. So initialize rule now will initialize with a default company. And now we're putting a validate rule. If it is different, throw an error when I save it. Let's say I go to this employee. I create it. Okay, I save it. Incorrect legal entity for employee. You see that? The validation.
We are importing the two groups. What are the groups we just import?
So first one is an initialize rule, which will put some value by default usually. Whereas validate rule will validate something. It's not something to do with the initialize rule. That's a different concept. This is a different concept. There is no guarantee that you have all the rules at one time. It can be anything. So that's a different concept. Forget about it. If I enter some value in the company, and if it doesn't match us with my legal entity of the employee, it will not allow me to save. Yes, the initialization. I put a validation which says, okay, if it is not matching with my employee's legal entity, throw an error. That's a validation rule. Okay? Everyone, is that clear? What we are doing? Sounds good?
And this could happen even while you are editing too, right?
Sorry, what is that?
This can happen while you, can you click OK here and change the ACE Germany to something else and see whether we get an error again?
It will give you an error if till the time it doesn't match.
Okay.
Let's I'll put ACE Australia, it won't allow me to save.
Okay.
Let's say if I put ACE USA, which is employees legal entity, it will allow me to save. Okay? It is validating. The condition is again depends on how you build the logic. Okay? But what it does is it will validate your logic with whatever conditions that you're putting. Here this one is the same legal entity. That's why it's allowing. Okay guys, I have to stop here. I have something, so I have to catch up. So we'll continue with this discussion tomorrow. We'll continue with rules for tomorrow as well, and most probably Monday. Okay, so we'll continue this topic a bit more, and we'll catch up tomorrow. Thanks guys. Have a good day. Bye-bye.